My name is Jeff Harris, and I was born and raised in Bristol. And I currently live in Midlothian, Virginia, which is just outside of Richmond. I went to Slater for the first 3 grades of my education, and integration came in my 3rd year. And at that time, we were told that our school would no longer be open and that there was something called integration that was going to take place, and we would have to go over to quote unquote the white school, which was Fairmount. And so my 4th grade, we integrated over from Slater to Fairmount. I didn't really know what to expect. I have a lot of thoughts that I've had growing up and looking back, but initially I just kind of probably saw it as an adventure. I wasn't around a lot of quote unquote white folks, so I really didn't know what to expect. But when we started, I knew that it was a major adjustment for race relations and for both races. I think most teachers tried to put forth a good effort in making the best of integration, but there were some that were pretty obvious did not want to teach black kids. My homeroom teacher, or my 4th grade teacher, was one of those. And she told me in no uncertain terms that because of my skin color, I would not amount to much. And that was a stigma probably upon my learning education until I got to college. Funny story was when I was a history major, and when I had to do a paper, and when I got I got an A on the paper, I asked the professor, "Is this correct?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, did I really earn that?" And he said, "I don't give away A's. If you didn't get it, you wouldn't have earned it." And that was the first time that I gained confidence since the 4th grade, that my ability to learn, and because of that stigma. Integrated school, I did, from the 4th grade through the 12th.
And so how was high school?
High school was good. I think what had happened was a lot of the initial fear and trepidation that both the teachers and the students were feeling, started to regress. And there were a lot more integration, if you will, between the races. Both sports. I played in the band in junior high and when I was a freshman in high school. And there's some good camaraderie between the races at that time. Went to a small liberal arts college called Bryan College. It's a small Christian college, and went there for 4 years. And oddly enough, kind of speaking to the impact of integration and just Bristol overall being a community, I did, after graduating, come back here. And at the time, I was still dating my wife, but at that point, we had not gotten to the decision or weren't to the point of our relationship where we thought we were ready for marriage. So I came back here. I fully had probably intended to stay here, went to every business that was present in Bristol at that time, even went to the armed services, and I wanted to go in as an officer or go to officer training school. Nothing was available, nothing. So I ended up leaving the community basically because I think that they didn't make it easy for a black person with an education to want to stay in the community. I actually went back to the college town where I was going to college, and started out in a factory for 1 year, and then went to work for the state, determining if people were eligible for welfare and food stamps. And I worked for the state for 3 years, and then my wife and I got married. She was a teacher in Dayton, Tennessee, in the community, and I was a social worker. We lived there for 3 years, 3 years, and our first daughter was born, and so we moved from Dayton when she was 5 months old and went back to Connecticut, which is Ironically, we had went up to visit her family, and we visited some of the friends on her job, and so the guy afterwards said, "Hey, I got a position open. If you're interested, you know, you can come back, and we'll keep the position for you." And so we decided to make the move. We talked about it, talked it over, prayed about it, and felt that that's what we wanted to do. And so we moved to Connecticut, and as I look back over my career with that company, I say that I married into it because of my wife, and that's how I got to go to that particular company. But I worked for them for 24 years. I actually came for Suburban to be their regional manager over 15 districts or 15 customer sites that they had, and I came there to be the regional manager, and that's where their home office was. Well, not their home office, but the regional office. That's a great question, and I think Bristol for black people has not really changed. Bristol, I always say, is not a progressive town. And I think that if you are well entrenched in politics and with the power base within Richmond, things can be good. But for a black person that really wants to rise up within the community, there have been very few that have been able to do it. Those that have been the McDaniels, and they've been police officers, a few that have become teachers. Tina's done very well in her position by living here. But for the average person, most of the folks, most of the young kids that I know have moved away because there's just not a progressive opportunity for them to really become involved in the community here. So when I come back, I would see people still sitting on the same street corners that I would see from years past. I know that we're focusing on the black community in the Bristol area, and I would say that the positive about integration is that it did eventually solidify race relations, and I think overall, I remember that my grandmother, she was probably very skeptical over white people and probably didn't trust them, and I don't think you see that, and I think that was because of because of integration. I think that it's really built an open, created an open mind between the races, and that's one of the more positive things. Negative, I think, with integration has been that the black community is not as strong as it was, and I think probably because opportunities were created and many of the black people moved outside of Bristol, the Bristol community. So I think that was a negative impact from the standpoint of integration, is that you see that the black community deteriorated more and more over the years to the point where there's probably very few black businesses, black business owners, black shops that you see. Most of my friends did move away and don't live local. So when I come back, it's pretty much just in and out. You know, I see my mother, very few friends, and then, you know, go back home. I think Bristol overall is a good place to raise a family. But for me personally, I need a little bit more than what Bristol offers.